Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Parent Power Hour and Parent University. Today's topic is all about effective communication with teachers. My name is Rakaya Burks, and I'm your facilitator today. I also have a co-facilitator, Josette Evans. We're going to introduce ourselves in just a few moments, but I wanted to go over a few things before we do that. So the first thing is, smile, you're on camera. We are recording this workshop to ensure that people who are not able to join tonight still benefit from tonight's session. If you would not like to be recorded, you may turn off your camera and or change your name on screen, as this recording will be shared to the grander population that we both serve at Humble Tutoring and Metamorphosis Powerhouse Company, because we want to ensure that all families are served regardless of if time permits or not. Today, I am going to explore why communication matters and how it supports your child's success. We're going to practice asking intentional questions that will strengthen the parent-teacher partnership. And then you'll leave with tools that you can build ongoing to strengthen that home and school collaboration. Now let's get to the introductions. Like I said in the beginning, my name is Rakaya Burks. And ironically, this is year 9 for me in education. I didn't realize that until I said it so many times over the weekend. This is year 9 for me. I started my journey in education through companies like Gear Up Georgia, Big Brothers Big Sisters, but all of them have been surrounded by leading our youth to become well-rounded citizens and also including their families in that work. I have served as a social emotional learning coach. I've been a classroom teacher. I've been in special education. So, needless to say, I've been in a lot of parent teacher conferences, which is why I'm excited to facilitate tonight's call to ensure that you are well supported in your journey, as we know that it is parent teacher conference season around the world, but specifically where we are here in Georgia. And I'll wrap by saying that I am the family engagement strategist at Humble Tutoring. Humble stands for Helping Unstoppable Minorities Become Leaders in Education. And we are proud to serve not only families in Atlanta, but worldwide, as we are a virtual company. So thank you all for tuning in, and I'll let Josette briefly introduce herself before we get into tonight's topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josette Hutton Evans. I'm the founder and CEO of Metamorphosis Powerhouse Company, where we turn everyday places into public learning classrooms. We're super excited to be here online for Parent University Power Hour with Humble Tutoring. Rakaya and Dion have been amazing partners. So we're really excited to give to parents what we've been seeing in surveys, which is needing a little bit more assistance in effective communication with teachers. We thought this would be a great time frame, seeing how we are right around the 9-week progress report mark for students and their families. So this is definitely going to be an engaging discussion. Please feel free to come off mute, use your chat. I will be serving as your moderator in the chat. So if there are questions or anything like that that we need to lift up and you don't feel like using your voice, that's perfectly fine. We'll be monitoring the chat, but that's all I have for now, Rakaya. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Josette. All right, let's get into it. So, here's the story behind it all. We have a love-hate relationship with parent-teacher conferences. Most times, it just starts with, I said what I said. Parents are very frustrated about what they have been experiencing. Sometimes the teachers are frustrated about what they've been experiencing or overwhelmed with in the classroom. And sometimes it just boils down to the negative energy of, I said what I said. But we want to make sure that we break that barrier, because the partnership is what matters. Your child needs to see that you and the teacher are one. They should not see that you all are against one another or have some type of tension, because sometimes it's just simple miscommunication, and we'll get into that. Sometimes you might feel like parent-teacher conferences are a waste of time, depending on where your child is academically. But I want to encourage you to join parent-teacher conferences regardless of where your child is academically, socially, and or emotionally, because you never know what support you may end up needing from the teacher, or providing the teacher with extra support to ensure that they are thriving in their role as the classroom teacher. And then the end of the story. Sometimes it's just a staring contest between you and your child because they are one person at home and sometimes they are a different person in that classroom. And sometimes it might take you by surprise that they're a different person in the classroom. But I want you to provide the safe space for your child to advocate for themselves and justify why they are different, or maybe justify why they are tearing the club up at home and at school. Like, of course, you raise them to do the right thing, but sometimes students do their own thing, right? Because everyone is human. And I just want the parent teacher conference, I guess, the narrative to be more positive in knowing that you guys are there for one reason, and that's for your child to succeed, regardless of what it takes. Sometimes it's hard work, sometimes it's a breeze, but either way, you should be showing up to your parent teacher conferences to ensure that your child and the school is fully supported. So now let's have a conference confession. In the chat, I want you to type, how do you feel about parent teacher conferences? Just give me one word. I'll give you my perspective as a former teacher. I would be a little anxious about parent teacher conferences because I didn't really know what to expect from the stakeholders that would join the meetings. And now, as Humble Tutoring, I am very excited to get in there and hear what my scholars are doing and what support my parents need. Feel free to drop your word in the chat and or come off mute, and I'll give you a few moments to do so. Let's see how you all are feeling about parent-teacher conferences.
I can share.
Sure, welcome.
Hey, this is Tatiana Elmore. I love parent teacher conference because I am an educator myself. So, but I find frustration. My girls' school, they do like a 10-minute conference, and that's just not enough time for me. So they started having monthly meetings where you can go into breakout room with all the parents and the children. So sometimes that's easier, but being able to still have side conversations is helpful. But I enjoy them because I want to know what's going on. I want to be able to help understand some of this new math work that's coming in. But yeah, but I can see how it can be frustrating.
Thank you for sharing. So I heard time being a barrier, but also excitement. Anyone else can share, but I'm going to make sure that I keep this thing rolling so that I respect your time.
I will share as a former classroom teacher, I would be frustrated because it would be long times that I'm waiting and parents will not show up. So the frustration would come in because the parents that I'm expecting to see did not come. And the ones that I really didn't need to talk to, that I talk to on a regular basis, they would actually be in attendance. And then on this side of business, I'm excited because I equip my parents to be advocates for their students. And so it just feels good to be on the call with them sometimes to see them using the tools that I provided for them.
I love that. You brought up a good point that I'm going to talk about in this next slide. Because the truth is, most teachers feel the same way about conferences, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, right? But the good news is that I'm here to make it easier for both sides, regardless of the feelings attached to parent teacher conferences. But you brought up a good point about communication, which we'll talk about in the next few slides. Parents, if you talk to your child's teacher often, you are doing what you are supposed to do. Those
Oh
parents who
my.
are not communicating. Hello, how are you?
No, that was an apology.
Oh, no problem. Um, for those of you who are not as engaged in conversation with your child's teacher, I am here to push you to communicate more and finding the middle ground of what communication looks like for both sides. Because I have the same sentiment. A lot of times I would talk to parents often and they would show up to parent teacher conferences and I'm like, you are aware of how your child is doing. Thank you for making time to come here to hear a little more. But I am pushing the parents that don't have the availability to communicate as much throughout other times to use this time to come and visit me. And I'm going to teach you some of the strategies that I use to pull in more parents so that you can use them if you're an educator and you can benefit from them if you are a parent. All right, so here's the legalities. This presentation and all materials is protected by copyright laws. I give you permission to take screenshots, personal notes, and engage in personal use, but I don't support the reproduction, distribution, or public display of any portion of this presentation without prior written consent. You can send us an email at support@humbletutoring.com if you would like to use this presentation for other things. And then a few housekeeping tips. No distractions. This time is for you. I want you to learn. I want you to be able to lock in and really retain this information that I'm sharing tonight, especially because it's a timely conversation. Take as many notes as you can. You'll see sticky notes at the bottom right of most slides, and that's me telling you that you should take a note on that if you choose to. And then feel free to ask questions. I'm going to ask you to type your questions in the chat. That way, at the end of our conversation, we can run through all of them Q&A style to ensure that we are keeping the conversation going. And that way, if you need more one-on-one support, you have the time to toward the end. All right, so I kind of talked about communication just a few moments ago as Chantel was sharing her sentiment about parents not showing up. And then Ms. Elmore also talked about the time and communication being a barrier just a little bit, because 10 minutes is not enough. All you can get through is, hey, how you doing at that point? So let's talk about how school and home play a major part in why students thrive, and they must be connected. So communication isn't about solving problems. It's also about celebrating the wins and building trust to ensure that your scholar is supported in all aspects. So communication provides trust and accountability. And we hear accountability as a buzzword in today's world because I think we've lost our touch a little bit in making sure that we're holding each other accountable, regardless of if you are the teacher or an educator, or if you are the parent. Everyone is held accountable for something in the child's journey, as well as the child. And we have to make sure that we are clearly communicating with one another to mold that accountability and continue it. We don't want to just hold people accountable from August to September and then be laxed from October to March and then ramp it up again because state testing is here. We want to be consistent in the communication overall. Students actually perform better when parents and teachers share insight and are collaborators. So students feel tension. Even if you don't say it, they feel tension. You want to make sure that you're building a positive relationship and mirroring what it should look like for your child as well. We know that some students have a strained relationship with academia, and we're still trying to put a Band-Aid on some of the wounds, but also just make more sense on why school should be a positive space for our students. And sometimes that strained relationship comes from them seeing you have a strained relationship with their teacher, the administrators, or the stakeholders in the school. So we want to make sure that we're supporting the child's trajectory by molding a strong relationship and mirroring the positives, and then teaching your child what you've learned from the negative. And then, of course, like I said, home and school are two halves of the learning environment. So we don't want the learning to stop once the child leaves the classroom, right? You want to continue learning at home, and that takes a strategic and positive partnership. So let's talk about it. How often do you currently communicate with your child's teacher, and how? Or you can answer, what would make the communication feel more effective for you? And I'll start while you think about whatever question you would like to answer that's on the screen. I am in a lot of, I guess you would say, newsletter portals or apps that schools around Atlanta use. And I see that on average, teachers are communicating with their stakeholders at least once a week through a newsletter. So that is how we generally get information, by newsletter. Sometimes it's every Sunday. Sometimes they might do it every Wednesday. It just depends. And then I'll also answer the second question while I give others time to think. I think that communication would feel more effective if we got more phone calls or personal text messages. But I'm aware that teachers are burnt out sometimes, and they don't have as much bandwidth as we expect them to have. And that we can stay on that topic for the rest of the night. But I do think more personable connections would make a difference in how effective the communication actually feels. And I'll let anyone who would like to share insight on one of these questions share. You may come off mute, or you may type it in the chat.
Well, I know when I was in the classroom, we as teachers, we had to communicate at least once out the week, and every month we had to share something positive with the parents about what their child was doing. Because I know sometimes a lot of us will, reach out when there's a problem, but not just making sure you sharing those good things that are happening in the classroom. But something that I share with my parents on this end as the advocate, I make sure that I tell them that you need to introduce yourselves at the beginning of the year and see what form of communication is best fit for you. I know that, I was that teacher. I was burned out. So sometimes I was like, yes, you cannot get my personal phone number. Contact me at the school, send me emails. And then, of course, we have the apps of, Class Dojo, different things. And some schools have their own, especially in Power School. So you can communicate on the regular. So just making sure you're using those tools and making sure, because I know sometimes when parents will see certain grades, they'll be like, oh, my child is failing, but they're panicking. And I mean, they're keeping it updated, or, oh, they haven't updated some of the information in there. So I don't know where my child stands. So that's why you got to make sure those lines of communication are open.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have any insight or want to answer one of the questions on the screen before we move forward? I see a comment in the chat. All my girls' teachers have my cell number, and I always try to get their number as well, right? So a lot of times, one of the barriers that I'm also noticing in education as I've been doing more research around parent engagement is we have behavior management tools that parents aren't connected to. And I think that will make a difference in how parents view effectiveness of communication, just because sometimes they use something called Kickboard or Power, which is powered by Power School that Chantel was mentioning. And they get points for positive behavior, or they might get a deduction or a neutral status for not so good behavior. And if parents were able to get that app and see the course of the day, how well their child is performing or what barriers are interfering with the learning environment, we would say that communication is more effective. So I think we just need to utilize technology just a little bit more. But thank you all for sharing. So let's go ahead and reflect on communication. Overall, we use communication in many different ways, right? Right now, I'm facilitating to you all. You guys are having the conversation with me, responding back. We've mentioned text messages. We've mentioned phone calls. We've mentioned apps. Communication is just not one size fits all. Sometimes we have to be creative in how we are communicating with one another, especially teachers who have overcrowded classrooms, a lot of caseloads, and minimal bandwidth, right? So I want you to think about some ways that you can be creative in the way that you communicate with your child. On TikTok, the little lunch get ready with me series of parents is trending right now. And a lot of times parents are going back to the basics and adding a written note for their child. But what if we do that for the teacher every week? Like Chantel mentioned, name one positive thing that they noticed from the week, or just share a positive message that can carry the teacher through the week to ensure that we are building a partnership. We are aware of the climate that we're in. We are aware of current news, right? And sometimes all it takes is one extra step of kindness to build a positive partnership between home and school. That's my suggestion. Write a little quick note or share something in response to the newsletter to show that you received it. Any type of communication that is positive will take you a long way. And I know not everything will be positive because that's not how the world works, but you are able to reframe some of the negative commentary into something positive or more insightful. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in the next few slides. I want to talk about common barriers. We've talked a little bit about it. We've danced around it a little bit here on this call tonight, but I know that we're all human. Everyone here is a human. Everyone working with children, they're human, and kids are human. Not everyone has a great day. Some things are frustrating and unclear. So sometimes it boils down to time, tone, and misunderstanding, and that's when most barriers form. But I do not want you to build your wall all the way up on all four sides because of one misunderstanding. So let's talk about the common barriers in depth. So we talked about time being a barrier. We see that parent-teacher conferences are between 10 and 15 minutes sometimes. And if you have a lot of concerns or a lot of things to address, you feel slighted with the time. I want to encourage you to think about how you can prepare beforehand to ensure that you're maximizing the time that the school is giving, but also advocating for more time. Join the PTA, join the meetings that you have for the school, and let your principal know, like, hey, we need a better system for our teachers to communicate with the families that are here to share concerns or observations, right? Sometimes it may be making it hybrid or virtual, depending on the population of students that the school is serving. Some of them are getting more creative. We know that parents work. Sometimes you guys work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. With eggs going up, gas going up, your kids go through a growth spurt every 3 days, right? You need to work. But we also have to meet you in the middle and making it work for you. So how can I become available for you for this conference? But they may not know that if you don't communicate it. So communication is the ground for all of this. But think about how you can maximize the time that you have and or advocate for more time. And then the misunderstandings. As a former teacher, a lot of the barriers came from simple misunderstandings because tone plays a factor in comprehension. So sometimes you may have to get on the phone and say, hey, I read the email, but I'm not really understanding this one part. And I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding you, your heart, or your integrity in what you are trying to deliver. Sometimes teachers are in a rush and they know that for compliance, a weekly newsletter is due. But going back to the bandwidth and them being a human, they make mistakes. Sometimes the tone may not come out correctly, which leads to your misunderstanding, which leads to the frustration, which leads to I said what I said. And we want to kind of avoid that domino effect of things happening. So being honest with your child's teacher and saying, hey, I don't understand this, or this wasn't really clear, or I've never heard you say anything like this before. Is there anything that I've missed? Those type of things can really break down the barriers, so that you have a positive parent-teacher relationship. And like I mentioned, a quick tip is if a message doesn't sit right with you or your spirit, pause. Don't respond immediately. This is your SEL tip of the whole year because we see how responding immediately gets people in a lot of trouble that they could have avoided by just making a sound decision. So if I got on this call tonight, I'm like, you need to talk to your child's teacher in a better way. That tone is crazy. I'm aware of that. But you on the other end could pause and say, well, Rakaya, I think that you could have relayed that message by doing A, B, and C. Sometimes people don't receive feedback, but the fact that you are willing to give feedback says a lot about you and your heart posture. So I want you to practice pausing before responding or just ask for clarity. Please do not assume. And if you do assume the best, right? Because at the end of the day, the baseline is communication is key. We're all human and we want your babies to succeed regardless, which is why I am very passionate about this topic. And we timed it very well because we are in the 9 to 12 week mark for most schools. I want you to think about these 3 things and evaluate the relationship that you have with your child's teacher right now. Is one of the barriers time? We heard one of the parents mention 10 minutes is not long enough. So you've already identified one of your barriers, right? I want you to think of a way that you can advocate for your child and the whole school because you're not the only one that feels like 10 minutes is not enough. And I guarantee that. So finding a way to advocate appropriately to ensure that moving forward, you guys have more than 10 minutes or a more structured approach outside of the community meetings where you feel heard and your child feels seen and valued. If it is common misunderstandings over and over again, you may need to have a one-on-one meeting with your child's teacher outside of parent-teacher conference time and say, hey, when you send messages, I don't really like how they are coming off, or maybe it's something that I'm missing. How can I work together with you so that we are on the same page and we are building this strong relationship for my child to thrive in your classroom? All right, let's keep going. So, communication isn't always easy, especially when time, emotions, or misunderstandings get in the way, right? Pushing through those barriers is worth it. That is how you are able to build the strong parent-teacher relationship that all schools, school districts, and um, partners like myself value, right? We want to make sure that there's some loving relationship going on between the parent and the teacher, professional love, right? But we want to make sure that the child is seeing how to respectfully and responsibly communicate with stakeholders, especially when they are at the forefront of the work. So, I love Family Feud. If you know me, you know I watch game shows all the time. Let's play a game of Let's Reframe That. And this is going to require full participation because I want you guys to hear how one negative thing can turn into many positives depending on your perspective on the topic. So I'm going to give you a question or a statement that I've heard before in a parent-teacher conference, and I want you to think about how you can reframe it into something more positive and light. Let's get started. The first one, why didn't you tell me my child was struggling? I heard that a lot, or I see it a lot. Think about what is at the root of that question and let me know how you would reframe that. Whether you are a former educator, current educator, parent, whatever your title is, how would you reframe this to change it into a positive communication? You are welcome to come off mute or type your reframe in the chat. Let's reframe. Why didn't you tell me my child was struggling?
Trying to think about this one.
Okay. Take your time. I want you to think of what is at the root of this question. For me, I will suggest one, but I know that you all will have something different. I would reframe this by saying, what's the best way for us to keep each other updated on the progress? Because we all know that sometimes teachers get swamped with grading or grading expectations change and it may not be in there. So they may not know that your child is struggling right when you want to know. So I would reframe it as what is the best way for us to keep each other updated on progress? And I'm going to come back to this one to let you all ponder on that a little more.
Oh, I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
What strengths do you see in my child and where can I provide extra support?
Okay, where do you see strengths in my child and where can I provide extra support? I like that because it's a two-tiered question, right?
Right.
So starting with a positive and then how can I as the parent support? Because like Miss Elmore said, new math, now we're talking about science of reading. Now we're talking about learning disabilities. Now we're talking about all of these parent-teacher associations and all of these other things. It builds on and reflects on you wanting to be a partner, right? The math is mathing and sometimes it ain't mathing. So how can I support my child and what strengths do you see? Because you always want to build off of your child's strengths because there's always room for growth, right? But you need to see the opportunity for the growth and know how to support the growth to get there. Anybody else before we go to the next one? All right.
I have another one. So like, what are some signs that I can look for at home? So I'll know where to support them as well, because apparently if they said that their child is struggling, it's kind of like they already know there's an indication somewhere there that they knew. So they were aware, but they didn't get it from the teacher. But I mean, you're seeing what's coming home because if they send home paperwork or if you're checking the apps and things of that sort. So you do have some type of awareness. And I think it's like they want you to spell it out for them, like give them the specifics, say exactly that my child is here. And most times I don't think as educators we will do that. So we will reframe it and let you know what your strengths are and then focus on the weaknesses or tell you some things that you can do to support them academically. Or sometimes they may, or you can say, how can you help me understand where my child is academically? So they will know.
You're bringing up some good points. If you're new to the humble side of the world, my dad has severe dyslexia, and that kind of drives the work that I do at Humble, especially as a Orton Gillingham trained tutor to help people with dyslexia read with ease. And one thing that I've noticed in working in majority Title I schools is that the children show signs that their parents had as children. So now there's a sense of not resentment, but maybe trauma or a trigger when I see that my child is struggling with the same thing I did, and I know I didn't get support and I never understood why I didn't have help. And now I'm irritated because why didn't you tell me my child was struggling? When they probably see the signs at home, but they don't know the label to put on there, or they don't know what support is out there to assist them. So at the root of this question is anger. The root of this question is frustration. Sometimes they may feel, parents, you may feel like you've let yourself or your child down because they are experiencing the same type of things, but it's not your fault. And I'll scream that at the top of the highest mountain peak that I can find. It's not your fault, but we do have to ask better questions or deeper questions to ensure that you're getting what you actually need. Sometimes you will not know what support you need, and that's okay. But you addressing that you know that there's a barrier and you know that something may be wrong, the earlier you say something, the better. Because I would never lie to you. If a parent came to me and said, I think my child is dyslexic, do you think that I would say, no, probably not? I would look deeper into it to provide the support and training that you need to support at home. Teachers are waiting for you to ask those questions. They are waiting to explain more things in depth. But in this world that we're living in right now, no one has the capacity. So teachers are scaling back on how much they explain or over explain things because everyone is overwhelmed with everything. So I want you to think about that as we are going through the next reframing question. Here's one that I hear too often. My child says you don't like them. Think of a way that we can reframe this into a positive perspective to get what you actually want from the child's teacher. One thing that I push my humble scholars to do when they say, my teacher don't like me, have you had a conversation with your teacher? That's the first thing that I ask my students. I don't go to the parent and say, your child saying that the teacher doesn't like them. I go directly to the child. Have you had a conversation with your teacher? Are you aware that adults have bad days? Because a lot of kids think that we are out here living it up, joyous and happy 100% of the time. And they don't understand or think that we go through things ourselves, right? So I always ask, have you had a conversation with the teacher? To the student. And to my parents, I say, when's the last time you had a check-in with the teacher? Because sometimes it could be that one bad day and the child may internalize that in a different way. And the teacher never meant for the relationship to be tarnished by being a human, right? But think of a way that you can reframe this to ask the question of what's happening, really, because that's what you want to know. You don't want your child to feel left out or unwelcome in any space. Chantel, what you got?
Let me see. My child feels like they are not supported in class. Is there a way that we can strengthen this connection or collaboration? But I mean, I feel like if I don't know my students or if they don't know me, they can't learn nothing from me and I can't learn from them. So it's a connection. So we have to build those relationships, strong relationships at the beginning, even during lunchtime. Because I remember in the cafeteria when I used to be in the classroom, my kids always wanted to sit by me because they wanted to know what I was eating for lunch. They wanted to know who cooked it. and different things of that sort. So we would talk about that. Or if we had inside recess, we played games. Uno was my thing. So we always played Uno if we had inside recess, especially if it was raining outside, or just talking about family, just letting them inside. So just making sure, they are able to make those connections. And sometimes if kids are shy or quiet, or they may feel that way, and it may not be the case that their teacher doesn't like them. They just don't interact with their teacher because they are the shy, quiet kid, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. And a lot of times, whether we know it or not, a lot of children are raised to stay in a child's place. So they don't know how to cultivate relationships with adults. And sometimes adults don't know how to cultivate relationships with children because there's a difference between understanding the world around them because of the age gaps and cultural differences as well. Anybody have anything else? Going once, twice. Okay. Here's one of the reframes that I had for you all. My child has been feeling disconnected. Can we talk about how to help them feel more supported? On top of that, where is their seat in class? A lot of students feel disconnected from the classroom or that their teacher doesn't like them because of how far away they are from the teacher's desk or the board or something that they feel like the teacher utilizes a lot in class. So think about seat placement as well. And make sure the babies that are wearing glasses, I'm a part of the 4 Eye Club, make sure the babies are near the front or the center of the room because that could play a part in why they feel like the teacher doesn't like them. Okay. Here's another one. When I tell you I did my research, I do a lot of research on parent engagement. So I go to events on purpose to just listen. This one, you keep giving too much homework. Because then the follow-up is, when am I going to have time? I got to work 8 hours, and then I do my part-time. And by the time I get home, everybody's asleep. And then we have to keep doing all of this homework. So let's think of how we can reframe this to really get to the root of what you want to ask as the parent. Instead of saying you keep giving too much homework, here's one that I thought of off the top of my head. What are the guidelines around homework for this school? Especially if you are in a new school, if you're in a charter school, if you're in a public school, I encourage you to inquire about their homework policy. Because I have a student in California, her school had a no homework policy. And I was very confused because that's not something that I'm used to on the East Coast. Everybody gets at least 1 page of homework from what I've seen. So I had to ask during the IEP meeting, like, can you provide insight on your homework policy? Because she says that she doesn't have any, and it's every day. I'm very concerned. That was a positive way of showing, like, I asked some questions. I know what the student is saying, or I know what I'm seeing. I would like to hear administrative work and answers around this. Let's see. Josette says, we are also hearing that some parents are concerned that their children are not receiving homework, right? Or the homework is too hard. Because then let's have the conversation of, is your child on grade level? More times than not, the students are not on grade level. So yes, the homework feels hard, but it's actually what they should be doing. And when you feel like they are receiving too much of the hard work, of course your child may feel friction in that because they don't know how to thrive with the homework they are given that they're supposed to know. And now we have another barrier. What other way can we reframe this scenario?
I think having a conversation with the teacher as a parent, especially some parents, work and have other things, but just having a conversation, because even for me, when they send it, again, going back to the new math, I would not complete it because I don't want her to complete it wrong. So I'll put a note on the paper, and then the teacher she'll mark it up with her red pen, but at least I'll know. But just having transparent conversations, if it does become a challenge or hard, because unfortunately, some of us as parents may have school trauma. I have homework trauma. My mom used to pop me in my head when I didn't know 1+1 and I'm kindergarten. So that may be a challenge on the parent as well.
Thank you for highlighting that. You made me think of something else that we need to see more of in schools is more collaboration between parents. So you should know other parents in your child's classroom. And so if you go in your parent community or whatever you guys have been and say, hey, this homework is getting a lot. Does anyone feel the same way? And if you have more parents saying, no, we feel like it's a great amount, how can you lean on those parents for support? How can you cultivate study groups within those student cliques to ensure that homework is getting done and that people are receiving the quality education that they deserve outside of the classroom? But thank you for sharing that and being transparent about homework trauma, school trauma is very real, right? I know that I would do my homework in class because when I get home, I'm trying to watch Steve Harvey. I don't want to do this math or reading that you have in front of me. I want to watch TV. I want to enjoy not being a scholar for 10 to 12 hours a day. We already sit in a classroom for more than 8 hours when it doesn't take all of that. Now you have a homework packet that I may or may not know the answers to. Even if you did teach it to me for the 8 hours that I was with you, doesn't mean that I retained it. So you brought up a good point, and I thank you for sharing that. We have two more, so I'm going to kind of speed through these. This one is a big one. This grade doesn't make sense. Going back to the red pen and markup. Sometimes grading structures are different per assignment, which causes a lot of confusion because we're used to streamlined routines. All of us went to school in a world where things were this is how you do it, this is how you don't do it, and this is your grade. But now it's like if you gave me partial, you get half a point. You might get 0.75 of a point because you tried your best. So grading scales have fluctuated to support the students because research shows that we were failing more students than passing. So it was an uproar on Facebook and Twitter and all of these other social media platforms where parents were frustrated or teachers are frustrated that you can't give a student any grade lower than a 60. Even if they only put their name and date of birth or name and the date at the top, they get a 60. The whole paper cannot have anything on it, but as long as they put their name on it, they can get a 60. So no, sometimes the grades don't make sense, but we don't really have control over that. Most teachers just have to do what they have to do. And hopefully people ask the right questions and inquire about why the grades don't make sense so that you're not only advocating for your child, you're advocating for your own sanity and you're advocating for the teachers in the school district to get it together to have streamlined processes on grading, right? So for that, I would say, could you help me understand your grading tiers for assignments such as a science project versus math? And then here's one that we kind of touched on. He's not learning anything in your class. And I'll be the person that plays both sides for this. Your child is learning something, but are you upset that they may not be learning the right things, such as behavior, mannerisms, things like that, because of other students in the classroom? Is that what the heart of this question typically comes from? Or are you feeling like your child is not learning because, again, they get too much homework and they can't do it by themselves, which is what homework is supposed to be created for? And most times, studies show that homework should only take 30 minutes. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by all of the homework, you may have school trauma like we have mentioned here on this call, or you just have your student has a lot of gaps that you don't have the patience for at home. That may be where this statement comes from. So we always have to do some internal reflections to see what the root of this negative communication or this clouded judgment comes from, so we can ensure that your child is fully supported, no matter if they're on grade level, if they have an IEP 504, if they are disabled in some way. We want to make sure that we're getting to the root. And I want you all to practice reframing the negatives into a positive to ensure that your child is not only seeing the positive behavior, but you'll also see a difference in your child over time when they have that strong parent-teacher partnership and they're witnessing it, and you'll feel a lot better because you're not in this alone. We've kind of gotten away from it takes a village to raise a child. But I'm here to tell you that we still need strong villages, whether it's blood or not, to support your child in this world so they can become well-rounded individuals and citizens, right? So sometimes you have to ask the hard questions. Sometimes your reframe button might be off that day, but at least you asked. And you are able to reflect on how that conversation went and work on it later. I like that round. I think I'm going to use let's reframe that in other workshops because I know what y'all be saying. And I want you to understand that there are other ways to communicate. All right, let's keep going. Here are the 3 P's for successful conversations. And I'm only giving you 3 successful trends for conversations because it can work in your parenting, it can work in your own friend groups, and it can work at your workplace. So let's go ahead and talk about the 3. I love Obama. Make a plan. So I'm going to go from the bottom up. Make a plan. What do you both need to do next? So say you left the parent-teacher conference, you're a little frustrated, or maybe you are feeling elated and it went smooth. Regardless, what do you both need to do next? Does the teacher owe you an extra piece of paper to demonstrate what the lesson was in class? Do they need to give you an extra copy of the work because homework is disappearing? Do you need to send a follow-up email to remind the teacher of the conversation and that you're here for your child and here for them to support them? Or is the next step for you all to have another meeting because you think that your child might have a learning disability, or the teacher is seeing behaviors in classes with other students and they want to make sure that your child is being transparent on what's happening. Think about what do you need to do next. Most times I would send a text message and say, hey, thank you for meeting with me. I remember we talked about these 3 things, expected in the folder by Friday. Then that's me as the teacher. Now, what I've seen from parents that I've hosted conferences with is maybe the child will have to come in the next day with an apology because they tearing the club up in the classroom, but they are different at home, right? Sometimes the next step is on the child. Hey, make sure you show your teacher that you got a new homework folder since the other one went missing, and make sure she knows what color it is so that we can start receiving the paperwork that is supposed to be being sent home. Then think about the positivity. How can I show this is about support, not blame? So how can I show that this is about support and not blame? Going back to reframing it, which is why we did the reframe activity before the successful tips, right? How can you turn my child is not learning into something that is a learning process for both you and your child, but also the teacher as well? Think about how you can reframe things. And then the purpose. What do I want to learn or communicate? Are you really communicating that you feel like the standards need to be revisited? Are you really trying to are you trying to communicate that maybe your child needs extra support because they're not on grade level when we're talking about the homework being too hard? Which one are you trying to communicate, or are you trying to communicate both? Or maybe are you trying to communicate that you as a parent, you're at your wit's end and you need support immediately so that your family is well, mentally, physically, emotionally, socially well? What are you trying to communicate or learn from the teacher? Is it that you need a breakdown of last night's homework, just an overview because you know that a test is coming up? Think about how all of these 3 P's work together and how it can create a well-oiled machine in the parent-teacher relationship. And then we're going to look at a resource that I created. I'm going to put a link in the chat for you all because I want to talk about asking intentional questions. And I'm going to switch my screen over to the resource that I created to ensure that you have what you need in this walkthrough. So go ahead and click the link in the chat. Josette is going to share the link on Facebook for our audience over there. It's going to ask you to make a copy. That way you have your own personal copy to manipulate in your own Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, AOL accounts. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that while I stop sharing my screen for a moment to pull up the resource. Because I want you all to have successful conferences moving forward. And this resource is going to merge together everything that I spoke about before, but also shed light on a few new things. So remember to click the link in the chat, make a copy, and then we're going to get started with the walkthrough.
Hi, Rakaya.
Yes.
There is a slight delay on our Facebook stream.
Okay.
So give me about 3 seconds for them to hear what you're saying, and I'm about to share the document link.
Okay, got it.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
that. We love a great moderator. Thank you for your support. For our people here on Zoom, give me a thumbs up or an okay in the chat if you can once you have your copy. Thank you, Miss Elmore. All right. I am now sharing my screen. I'm going to give Josette just a couple more seconds to drop that link into the Facebook community. And then we're going to get started with the walkthrough of how to put all of what I just taught you together in one document for before, during, and after your parent-teacher conference. Jose, give me a thumbs up when you are ready.
Text that to me really quick just so I can speed it up.
Okay.
I'm moderating on my phone.
Oh, got it. Okay.
For
Give us
the
one
Facebook.
moment, y'all. Let me get Josette the link. And then I will be walking you guys through how to use this resource. And remember, if you have any questions, please drop the link or the question in the chat so that we can get to them toward the end. All right. All right, Josette, I just sent it. All right. So we're talking about the parent-teacher conference prep guide. If you are not aware, I am an instructional designer by trade, which means that I create learning resources for little babies, middle babies, grown babies, and corporate. And one thing that I like to use a lot is a prep guide, regardless of what population of learners I'm serving. So I created this parent-teacher prep guide for you to use before, during, and after any parent-teacher conference or any parent-teacher meeting that you'll have for the rest of your child's educational journey. So this guide will help you show up prepared with the right questions, capture your notes, and reflect with your child after. And at the bottom, I also included email templates. So let's say you're in a rage and you're frustrated. I'm pretty sure I have a positive email template at the end of this document that will support your reframe as we are becoming social emotional learners and well-rounded adults in these conversations with the teacher. So before the conference, you have some prep questions to reflect on. What areas do I see my child struggling with at home? This is where you can talk about homework. What subjects do they typically like? How is their behavior, motivation, and confidence? And then what goals do I have for this school year? This is where you are including your child in every single question because your child is aware of what they're struggling with. You're aware of what you observe as the parent. And then the teacher sees a different side of that as well. So you can jot down a few things about what you're thinking there. If you know your child likes science, it's good to say that to the teacher because a lot of times we can differentiate instruction by commingling the curriculum, right? Or you may have some insights to share about their behavior, motivation, and confidence. Did you guys experience something that maybe shed a positive light in one area of their behavior, or is something happening where they are kind of regressing or showing negative behavior? You can jot that down here. And the confidence comes from sometimes your type of parenting. Are they more confident in praise because you do that at home? Like, do they need to hear that they're doing a great job? Or are they a self-starter? It's good to note that there. And then what goals do you have for the school year? Now let's scroll down to during the conference. When you're engaging in these meaningful conversations with your child's teacher, they will shed light on strengths. They will most likely share the skills that you could work on. They can also talk to you about how well they are participating. Is your child confused about the math homework because they sleep during the math lesson? Or is your child asking a lot of questions and we need to figure out why they are still having a disconnect? So those are some things that you can ask the teacher during the conference. And I'm giving it to you so that you have less to think about. How does my child interact with peers is another question that I don't think many parents ask, but it will be a good tip for you to keep in the back of your head to see how much you need to expose your child to different environments and different people. And then the last two, upcoming projects, thinking ahead, being proactive, and the best way to communicate with you moving forward. I had a parent that gave me the work phone, the grandma's phone, the cell phone, the uncle's phone. I had the whole village in my phone because if I wasn't able to reach her, I knew that I could call the work phone during certain hours. If she didn't answer at all, I knew to call the uncle that's right down the street to support us, right? And if uncle doesn't answer, I'm calling the uncle's mama. I'm calling grandma. Someone has to be available, and we have to know who it is and how to reach them, right? No problem. Thank you for joining. So what's the best way to communicate moving forward? And then as we keep going at the bottom, you have a note-taking template. And you can print this out for your child too to have at their conference. Most schools are going into having the children facilitate their own parent-teacher conferences. So this could be something where you both are taking notes. What is the teacher's feedback on 1, 2, and 3? What action steps do we need to take as of tonight? And then what are the next steps at school? And we kind of talked about that earlier. And then toward the bottom, you have after the conference. So let's reflect with your child, not in isolation. What's one thing you feel proud of? What's one area you would like to grow in? And how can we work together to make this school year the best one yet? A lot of times, parent-teacher conferences feel daunting because the child is not involved in their own educational journey. We want your children to take accountability and ownership of their learning journey while you're supporting everything that the teacher is doing and the teacher is supporting you in what you're doing. That is how we get strong partnerships. And then at the bottom, I'll just stop with this first one, these first two. The email templates that I drafted for you all. The first one is addressing concerns. So, hi, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for meeting with me during parent-teacher conferences. I appreciate the time you took to share feedback on Jonah's overall journey. One concern you raised was that he talks while you're talking. I'd like to partner with you to make sure Jonah continues to grow in this area. Could you recommend resources, strategies, or specific ways we can support at home? Thank you again for your support and guidance. Instead of saying, you told me Jonah talked too much and he needs to watch his mouth. You see how the reframe happens. You're addressing what was said, and you're also asking for the support in return. That'll take you a long way. And then template number 2 is expressing gratitude. So just thanking them for taking time to share feedback, resources, all of the things to ensure that you are equipping your scholar with the tools and support that they need. So that is your resource. Feel free to use it at any point. I am going to share my screen one last time. And I also need to get you guys the link. I'm just going to share my screen and I'll email the feedback form to you all that are here for feedback from tonight's call. If you have any questions, we're going to go over that. I'm going to share briefly the feedback window, and then I'll have Josette talk to you guys about the work that she's doing at Metamorphosis. Let me make sure I got the right one. One moment, y'all. My apologies. Technology has not been treating me or Josette very well. Yeah, for these parent power hours. Give me one moment. All right, there we go. I would greatly appreciate your feedback in sharing what worked, what you would like to see more of moving forward for our parent power hours to ensure that you are getting what you need. You may scan the QR code or type in talk.ac/humble tutoring to ensure that you're leaving the feedback that will help us continue to make parent power hours a success. I dropped the link in the chat for you. You may copy and paste it. The code that you're going to use is TALK. And I'll leave this up for a few more seconds. And then we're going to hear from Josette about her work at Metamorphosis. While I'm waiting on the screen to load. I thank you all in advance for sharing your feedback. And now I'm going to turn it over to Josette to talk a little bit about what she's doing at Metamorphosis.
All right. So this has been such an awesome night. For those of you who are joining either on Zoom or with us live on Facebook, just want to say thank you so much for not only your attention, but also to Rakaya and Dion over at Humble Tutoring for this awesome partnership. If you don't know me, my name is Hutton Evans. I'm the founder and CEO of Metamorphosis PowerHour Company, where we turn everyday places into public learning classrooms. We do that to equip youth for success, to support healthy family foundations like tonight. That's what Parent University is all about. And to help communities thrive where historically underserved citizens live, work, and play. We primarily focus on education equity and transforming public spaces into learning landscapes. And so I'll be sharing some information over the next couple of slides, and we want to make sure that you get a copy of this slide deck. So if you haven't registered for the Zoom or you haven't joined the email list, please do, okay? Because we are looking to serve your community. We love to partner with school districts, micro schools, charter homeschools, but especially parents. And so this is your resource that, based on surveys and your feedback when we're out and about, we started collecting information, but then also looking across our partners to see who could really deliver on a consistent basis all of the things that we've been hearing parents want to know. So that's a little bit about how we even arrived to Parent University. We're super excited to kick this off. This is session 3, right, Rakaya? And so if you've missed session 1 and session 2, we've been doing this since August, all right? So if you're not following Humble Tutoring or Metamorphosis PowerHour Company, we do not want you to be missing out on all of this great stuff, okay? These resources are always free, okay? A copy of the slide deck and the presentation for the recordings will be sent to everyone who registered. So make sure that you have registered with your email. We promise not to spam you, but we also want to be intentional with the folks that actually want to utilize this information and really support their students at home. This is all about improving and increasing the home to school connection. Okay, so go ahead and hit me on that next slide, Rakaya. All right, so in addition to Parent University, we also have a mobile academic classroom. It's a shuttle bus that we have converted over that comes out to neighborhoods, your rec centers, your churches, any and every space that you can imagine. And so we make sure that you are aware of some of the programs that are available in your county. We support 8 counties across the state where low child well-being is being addressed. Go ahead and share the next slide for me, Rakaya. And so, in the event that you are in the Southern Crescent, especially, and the Thomasville Heights and Southeast Atlanta, we want to make sure that you know that a lot of what we're doing around Parent University, our mobile academic classroom, is being brought to you by the Learning Loss Grant by our Friends United Way of Greater Atlanta. There is ways that you can get our resources absolutely free, whether those are the after school programming that we do versus both virtual and over the summer for summer camps. The way that you can get started with that is literally just scanning the code that you see on the screen. I'll make sure to put the link inside our live chat. All right. But again, this will be information that will be shared to you as long as you register for a Parent University. Go ahead and advance the slide for me, Rakaya. And the other thing that we want to make sure is that you know is that in addition to supporting you as parents for your students with all of the wonderful Parent University workshops that we do, we also have a partnership where we have partnered with Google for career certificates. We are giving out scholarships on a quarterly basis. We have a scholarship application coming up starting November the 1st. So we want to make sure that you are aware of all of the ways that we can support you as an adult. We do multi-generational supports. So not only are we supporting you as a parent, but we can definitely support you for your workforce development. So if you were ever interested in getting into a STEM career, learning some entry-level foundational skills around AI, learning information around things like data analytics, business analytics, IT, cybersecurity. There's 10 to choose from, things like UX, which is UX design, which is a lot about customer experience. There's so many different ways that we can support you. So be on the lookout for how to apply for that scholarship beginning November the 1st. Go ahead and advance the slide for me, Rakaya. This will be information that comes to you. Again, there's 10 certificates to choose from, things like cybersecurity, data analytics, digital marketing and e-commerce, IT support, project management, and UX design. It's all self-paced, it's all DIY, and we would love to honor you with a scholarship. We'll have an orientation coming November the 1st. So again, once you register, we will make sure that you get information about all the ways that the Career Certificate Scholarship Program works. You can go ahead and continue advancing.
I think that may be the end. Yeah, that's all I have access to.
Okay, perfect. All right. So be on the lookout for your slide deck. We definitely thank you for your time. Rakaya, please definitely let them know again how to get in touch with you. Can you also share those of the folks that have joined us late on Facebook where we're streaming all of the different ways that you tutor youth, the specific age range or grades. This is the most frequently asked resource that we get when we are at schools, when we're out in the community, we tutor. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing the fact that, yes, we have this partnership with you and share with them different ways that they.
Yes, so if you guys join later haven't seen me before, my name is Rakaya Burks. I'm the co-founder and family engagement strategist here at Humble Tutoring. Humble stands for Helping Unstoppable Minorities Become Leaders in Education. And we're more than just a tutoring company. So because you're here tonight and Josette asked, Humble took a hiatus in 2025, but our first program is coming back in January of 2026. Enrollment will open November 1st. So we are offering academic programs, we have life skill trainings, and we also do parent workshops, which is what you're tuned into tonight. But in January of 2026, we're going to be hosting a 6-week initiative, 6 weeks, 1 day of literacy, 1 day of math. And it's going to be around specific skills that we see students struggling with the most. And then in March of 2026, we're going to be hosting a state testing bootcamp to ensure that students are well equipped with the skills and tools they need to ace any state test that they are taking. So you heard it here first, but if you would like to hear more, I need you to join our email list. And I will make sure that Josette and I share the information on how to join our email list to receive the information. Because, like I said, you are receiving top tier information because no one else knew about it until right now. So, enrollment will begin on November 1st. And you want to get in on November 1st because we have limited spots because tuition will go up on November 15th. So, you have to make quick decisions to ensure that your child is supported. But I will keep you all in the loop via our email list, which you may join at any point. And I thank you all for tuning in tonight. I appreciate the partnership with Metamorphosis Powerhouse Company, and I hope to see you at the next one in November. And I hope you all have a great night.